was in New York my whole life. And I moved, and when Brian asked me, I moved to the Charlotte area. So I was happy to come and take the train and to do this. So my talk is Invisible Hands, Enduring Influence. A lot of people don't know much about who's the instrument behind the instruments. So I assume that many of you are familiar with the term Luthier. This is an educated audience, good. A lot of times people don't. And I'm happy to talk a bit about what it is to be a luthier and what it is to be behind the musicians. For example, if you see Prince, the famous guitar player, the pop singer, he has this beautiful purple guitar. How many people know who made that? It wasn't him. Paganini played the beautiful violin. Does anyone know who made that violin? But most people would say Strat, that's the point. Actually, it's one made in Jason. So behind every great artist is an equally great instrument, and it puts a lot of pressure on the luthier to produce something that the performer can go on stage and really get out a high quality performances. So first of all, I want to say that to do this type of work is kind of difficult. To deal with musicians, and they're very finicky, right? I have a friend who plays violin at a very high level. John, my violin is not sounding so good, can you do something? Sure, the sound goes. Any violinists here? So violin has a dowel that goes on the inside, it's fitted in there. You can move it and you can change the sound. So I said to him, sure, I'll move it for you. And I get my tool, I go inside the F1, and I start grunting, I'm doing something I'm not. And then I handed it to him and said, here you go, try that. He goes, oh, you're genius. I said, no, it's all here. No, you did something, no, I didn't do anything. So you have to deal with the psychoacoustics of the musician. By the way, I play a bit of music, so one day I wake up and I play my instrument and I love it, I'm on cloud nine the next day, and I'll go back to my bad habits, And that has to do with a lot of how you perceive things as a musician, or it could be that, or temperature, it could be a few factors. But psychoacoustics is a real thing, and musicians terrorize us a little bit of that. When you set out to do this type of work, you have this responsibility, first of all, creating a violin, and it has to actually look like a violin. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is it has to sound good, right? Then it has to be easy to play. It actually doesn't matter how good it sounds, but if it's easy to play, more people play it. And then it has to last 200 years as well. Right? So that's some of the difficulties that we come across when making instruments. I'm very passionate about teaching because initially when I wanted to do this work, it was very obvious from a young age I wanted to do instruments. I love music and I love woodworking. So if you integrate those together, you have Luthier, you are making instruments. But initially I was a young man, I couldn't find anybody to teach me. It was very difficult. The internet was kind of a new thing, there was some information out there. So you relied on books, but without a teacher, someone to bring you into a shop and learn the knowledge, it was very hard to start on your own. I was lucky when finally a German master apprenticed me. I was like, really, you're going to take me? And it was like typical European style apprenticeship. The first year I just sharpened tools, learned how to work by hand, and it's kind of like I became wax on wax off. He's wondering when he's going to do karate. So it takes time to develop those skills. And then I finished my apprenticeship, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I wasn't around to spend time playing. And I came back and I said, well, I don't want to go back to working in a factory at IBM. I used to work 12.5 hours in a clean room. So there was a big room. I said, just going to make a new. So I made a new, and then my friends started coming to me, buying things, having repairs done. So it turned out to be a thing that we done for 15 years. And in that time, I've done a lot of things like restoration work, which come from a violin making background. Basically copying Stradivari, copying what I made from Jason. And so you get to become a good copyist. So that helped in the endeavor of food making and food restoration, where you have to make it look original. You're going to remove the soundboard, which is a common, that's the top of the oud. It changed over the years because it's fragile. And a lot of people would just change it out and just make it look their way. I think that's kind of wrong. People would usually like that and have to do that on that. So I would break down all the little mosaics and make them by hand and do like a proper restoration, not to the scenes, so the original. So a lot of these things go behind the scenes. People don't know. You see the performer on stage, you don't know who's behind the instrument. You know, and what happened? A conversation between the luthier and the musician to get that instrument to do what it is. Like they had a custom idea, they wanted a certain way, and when they don't get it right, well, they punish you. So you can learn very quickly. And you need musicians. You have to listen to what they say. They say, okay, well, I need to project outwards so the people in the back of it. So now you have your cast with doing that. Has anyone ever read the book, The Violin Maker? Well, there was a book about Sam Savitovich. He's the most successful violin maker living. And Gene Juker from the Emerson String Quartet hired him to make a brand new violin that's going to match or be better than his one day they'll just good luck. And so we go through this whole journey of what we'd like to make this, to make this violin for Gene. And long story short, in the end, Gene did not like the violin as much as his one day maker. Of course, it's, has 300 years of age and it's like why. But they worked together on making something. He liked the violin. But it's a tough thing to compete with Stradivari or violin that just, So when you're working with musicians the best you can, you learn from them, they learn from you. Sometimes you have to tell them what you want is not feasible. It's not reasonable. So you're in these situations. I'm going to take question and answers and do some questions. Have a real idea here. So I'm happy to answer anything, take advantage. Because usually we huddle in our shop, with the dust and the wood and stuff. So I'm here and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am. The lute. I'm sorry? The lute or the oud? The oud sometimes can have frets, but typically it does not. It's a different fingerboard, much like the violin and the cello. And some people have tight frets on, but I think you miss a lot of notes. You're missing quarter tones. Like on the piano, you have the black and white theme, and well, there's another color in there that you can have if you have an open fingerboard. It's challenging, and you're always adjusting, and while you're playing. If you get the hang of it, just like violins, you're used to playing that's what's the nature of that instrument. It's the same, the practice when you get it. Sir?
Behind wood.
What kind of wood is used? For the oud. Okay. So a lot of the ouds at the top is just the sound hole where you see the sound hole, use a spruce. Sometimes you can use cedar. And the sides, the back rather, the bowl, that's the round shape of the bowl of the back of the oud. It's typically made from a hardwood. It could be rosewood, it could be, in the old days they like to use walnut a lot, so people look for that. Maple is good, I've used all kinds of woods, and you get good results. I like mahogany for sound, I like look. You have a lot of choices. The net is usually, it's best, a lot of people like to match the wood of the bowl, just to keep it uniform looking. The pit moss also be the same. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do they come in different sizes?
Oh, yeah. So the size of the oud that Navarobi was just playing was Turkish/Greek style oud. They tend to be 10-15% smaller than a lot of the Arabic models can be bigger, and they're tuned lower, tuned different. And they're playing different repertoires, so they're geared for that, for the differences between the repertoire. So it used to take me about a month, and then I got it down to 2 weeks for the purpose of being able to teach people how to do it. I have courses where people come and study with me, and it's been a month. So I got it down to 2 weeks. But my nicer instruments that are more ornamentation, that's going to take a while. Yes, sir?
Is there electric ouds? Like not just an oud with a pickup, but like metal strings and guitar pickups? Does anyone does that?
Not so much.
No?
But yeah, there are electric ouds. Yeah. Some people who play like cavern, club, or weddings, they're using flower. They'll use something like that. The less classical setting, like with the mav and then just play
Do you use a form for the bowl?
Yeah, so there's two ways to make an oud. The first thing you have to do is make the bowl. And the shape of the bowl is, I call it like a half almond, a half pear shape. That's kind of the shape of it. And some people, I use a mold, and some people make it without a mold. It's actually possible. I prefer to use a mold, but the problem is if you want different shapes, there's a lot of different geometries. You're going to have a lot of molds to do that. So a lot of different shapes out there. There's not a lot of standardization. Well, particularly with the Arabic, there's a lot of variation, for better or for worse. I would say the Turkish Greek, Armenian roots tend to be a little more uniform. And when someone tells me I have a Turkish oud, I kind of know what's coming. When they say an Arabic oud, it's could be a lot of variety. And that has maybe partly to do with the way it's made, but the mold I think helps for me keep that particular geometry consistent. Whereas if you make it without a mold, it's tougher to control. Remember, you have to join these ribs in the back with no gap and everything. So a good mold, you can make many instruments on and they'll all be the same. Yes, sir?
Yeah, you were mentioning a little bit with the woods about the sound quality versus the visual quality. When you have people who are requesting you to make an instrument, what would you say is the proportion of their desires that have to do with the visual qualities versus the sound qualities? And when do those kind of values come into conflict with each other?
Yeah, so sometimes someone, will want a strange look, or want something unique, rather. And then they start to deviate from the importance of the sound. So I try to steer them back to using materials that might be more optimal for sound. Because I've had strange requests. People want things hanging from the side. Don't do that. Maybe go to that other guy. Maybe he'll do that. I'm known for certain parameters, and I try to keep my work within those parameters. So, but yeah, I said earlier, I like mahogany for sound, but not too much look. So there's some woods that are probably better acoustically than others. I love the look of some. Maybe like a zebra wood, which is very flashy. I don't know, sound, it's tough for me to get a good sound out. So it's a compromise. Yes, ma'am?
Is there any way to know how old the oud is in terms of historical, record?
There's a lot of interesting information from different people over the years. Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, they wrote treatises on ouds and they try to divide the length of the scale, the neck, and things like that. So it goes back a bit. No one knows exactly where it originated. Some say it could be Persia, some say Egypt, some Mesopotamia. It's hard to say, and it would differ from what we know as the modern oud today. Really, the modern oud took shape with Nahat, which they have one beautiful example there, and there's others. And I have friends that say, oh, I don't like Nahat, they're overrated. That may be true, but if you make an oud, you're going to be borrowing from their recipe. So, if you don't like Stradivari, you're making a violin, you will still be making a Stradivari violin at 95%. So, you have to give credit where credit is due.
Is it thousands of years or?
Yeah, it's an ancient instrument. It goes back quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we have treaties as much as 1,000 years ago written talking about the divisions of it. So it goes back before that.
Yeah.
Anyone else on this side?
What's the relationship between the lute and the oud?
Oh yeah, so this is another hot debate. So it is said that the oud came into Spain and likely played a part in birthing the lutes, which looks a lot like the oud, but with frets. And perhaps the Spanish were replicating, and perhaps the Spanish were part of it. You could make an argument that the oud is the great grandfather of all these instruments, actually, which is an interesting one. But some musicologists will not be happy with me saying that. I'm not saying I know for certain, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that you can make a case for that.
So the oud used to fret it in some cultures.
There were frets on it, yeah.
But with dust strings.
It probably would be up with that, yeah. Yes, ma'am?
Are there any obvious red flags to play an instrument not looking?
So if someone's looking to buy food, and if there's any red flags for lack of quality, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of tourist foods, they look nice, and with $200 you can go to Egypt and hang on your wall. But if you want to play it, you have to put about $1,000 into it. So I do a lot with those. Sometimes they actually can sound really good, which is fun. Here in the West, when you make a guitar, the soundboard is made of two halves in the same piece. And it's a very, it has to be, they say, it has to be fine grained or very high quality, spend a lot of money. Sometimes it looked like they just went to the market, took a crate, cut it off, made a soundboard out of 5, 6 pieces with knots in it, and got amazing sound. But the functionality of the instrument, like the tuning pegs and things, you fit it very rough and very tough to tune. So the beginner will have a lot of trouble learning to tune. There's a funny saying that the ukulele player spends about 95% of their time tuning and 100% of the time playing out of tune. There's a lot of truth to that, you know? And if you have 11 strings, individual strings of 12, you have to tune them all, and the wind shifts a little bit, or the temperature changes a little bit, everything moves. So you spend a lot of time tuning, you hope that whoever fitted those tuning picks like the violin fitted them well, the tuning can go fast. I'm sorry, sir, go ahead. The guitar, pegs, so they look ugly, the guitar tunes look ugly and they're heavy. So you put them on and you feel that it's almost a fall. We have mechanical tuning picks that look like regular ukulele or violin pegs. A lot of people like that because it's good. Beautiful classic goes up a little bit to get heritage, they're about low. But they're tuning those are kind of over. One on the side? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Before you ask, there's one more. One of this last question.
This is the last question.
Make it good. No pressure, no pressure.
Exactly what I'm looking for. I'm a classical guitarist and interested, but what should I look for as a beginning wood player then? What's the price range? Do I go to new? Do I go on Facebook Marketplace?
That's a antique classic guitars, by the way. If you do it, if you find something online, you're taking a gamble. It's best to try the instrument in person, make sure that the pegs turn well. So I suggest don't buy it online. I think it's better to find it in person and connect with it, and make sure that it's of some quality that you can actually use. You do play guitar, right? So you understand quality to a certain degree. It's a little different. So I recommend going somewhere in person and finding your forever. All right. If anyone wants to find me on John Vergara, Luthier, Lord of the Strings, also known as, you can find me like that. You can ask me any questions there, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, guys.